session to order on Tuesday, June 24th at 6:30 p.m. First off, we have approval of the agenda, and I wanted to make a motion to amend the agenda to include in action items the contract with LDR. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. And then may I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Got it. Thank you. That
Second. Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Our next item is our work session item, which is the fiscal year 26 budget.
All right. Good evening, board. I know this is not part of the formal item for the agenda, but I thought it would be a good idea to bring back to community and also the board the budget directive and really outline kind of where we are, and then also look at where additional adjustments were made based on the last conversation. Upon review of the few items that I will address, I will hand it over to Chris Holzer, who will outline the changes to the budget as well as answer any questions from the board. So just as a reminder, there were 6 directives that were included in the budget directive. One was around a commitment to equity. The other was a focus on closing academic achievement gaps. Also a focus on curricular and instructional resources, and this year the focus was on literacy, as well as maintaining the ability to ensure the success of students outside of academics, which would be social emotional learning. Directive 5 was focused on continuing to recruit and retain highly qualified staff. And then the last item outlined by the board was to ensure that we are being fiscally and financially responsible. So I will say, based on the feedback that was received from the board and given to administration, the initial change to the budget timeline allowed additional time for preparation, so thank you, board, for that, in addition to the follow-up questions that were received from members of the board. But I thought it was important to highlight several items as it relates to the budget directive, as well as the quality of the budget that we are actually bringing forward to the board. So where have we submitted our money, and where are potential gaps as we head into the fiscal year 26? So for the Directive 3, which was around instructional investments, last year the board actually supported the adoption of a math resource, and this year the focus through the work of Dr. McGee and his team was on identifying literacy resources, which is also a requirement by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So that item was addressed and was also brought to the board at the last board meeting. In addition, looking at the development and retention of highly qualified and mission-aligned educators, this item was actually accomplished through the collective bargaining agreement with a 2-year increase that the board approved to ensure that we're able to not only recruit but retain highly qualified staff. This one I think is probably most prevalent, as the focus was on strategic deficit spending and also ensuring financial stewardship. So what the administration attempted to do was to identify revenues to support the budget and offset some of the costs, but also look at how we could strategically bring in consistent revenue to strengthen the ending fund balance. And so what you see here, one of the strategies was to surplus and sell 2 of the district properties. We were able to do that and receive above market asking price for both of those items, by which that money was added back into the budget. In addition, this is the 2nd year of the $400,000 grant that was acquired for competency-based education through Dr. McGee's leadership and his team, which is also offsetting the budget, but also allowing us an opportunity to continue to focus on the alignment with the district strategic plan. Thanks to our community, we had 2 referendums passed. One was the $15 million bond, and the other was the debt service levy transfer in the amount of 50 cents, which will generate approximately $2.2 million, which is actually being used to support the increases in teacher salaries. And then the last item that I want to highlight as outlined in the board's directive is the projected ending fund balance, not only for fiscal year 25, which is projected at being 33.9%, also keeping in mind that an additional budget for the end of the school year will come forward, so we could end better than that. And then the projected fiscal year 26 ending fund balance is 43.7%, which again is higher than the board directive of 30%. So, being very intentional and strategic about the alignment of expenditures and also the revenue, and ensuring alignment to our strategic plan. I also want to highlight the projected financial outlook, and so the board pointed out specifically the deficit spending. So for the fiscal year 24, we had approximately a $1.1 million planned deficit spend that was resulting in a sizable salary increase, which also impacts budget from the standpoint of benefits as well as retirement. And then when we transition right now where we are for the fiscal year 25, the tentative deficit was reduced to approximately $521,000. So that's almost reducing to half. And so as a result of some of our other strategic shifts, we are projected for the conclusion at the fiscal year 26 to actually have a surplus of approximately $3.4 million, which again is primarily due to reductions in the purchase services as well as strategic staffing adjustments. So for positions that didn't necessarily need to be filled, not filling those, as well as funds from the two past referendums. So again, the strategic intentional actions of administration allowed us to enter into the next fiscal year and having a better outlook from a financial standpoint. The other item that I want to highlight is the board's support and continued support of student support services from a social emotional standpoint. Both staff surveys as well as student surveys identify this as an area of emphasis. So the board continues to fund the social emotional learning curriculum for students, as well as social worker services and counseling services for our buildings. The other item I wanted to kind of highlight, which was something we discussed during the last budget conversation, is where could we potentially make additional adjustments. And so just want to highlight a few of those areas based on some of the suggestions from a few of the board members, as well as discuss some of the items that potentially could be a focus for the fiscal year 27. So starting with the Human Resources Department, we did decrease the PD travel from 4,000 to 2,500. We do think it's beneficial for Dr. Shonda Ambrose Phillips and her team to have access to professional development opportunities, particularly with constant changes that impact the Human Resources Office and Department. In addition, we renamed the diversity recruitment and hiring fair and took the miscellaneous piece off. So I did follow up with each of my direct reports to further understand which of those items needed to be shifted. And so being more clear about where those funds are going, and also the focus on continuing to ensure that there is a parallel between student diversity and also the diversity of the staff that are in buildings, so that there is a relationship between the two. One of the items that we also reduced was the employee records, and so typically the district will pay for Kelly Services subs to have their background checks, and so for those individuals who need additional checks, rather than paying for those individuals, we're going to place the burden on those individuals if they would like to sub in the district, and so that's been reduced from $18,500 to $5,500. You'll see additional adjustments to PD, as well as a correction to the HR 9 certificated substitutes. So initially that item was actually duplicated, which reflected a $37,000 expenditure. It was initially $18,500 twice, and we did reduce that to $17,500. Transitioning to the administrative and instructional support, we did make reductions to the administrative PD travel. This is particularly at the ECC, so that reduction was from 4,000 to 2,000. And then we also made reductions to the Power School University participation. So for this particular item, what we did was reduce the number of individuals that will actually be participating. And then a reduction for the Leadership Core Retreat that was reduced from $1,500 to $750. I won't read all of these, but we went through all of the budgets and looked at actuals from the previous year to make reductions to any staff lunch, breakfast, snacks, but we did include some funds for that because I do think it contributes to the development of culture, particularly when we're providing professional development to staff. And that time is limited when you think about drive time to get to a place and being able to bring food back and those parts. For the board account, you'll see multiple reductions. I did include participation for MSBA to 5 participants, which would actually be 4 board members and the superintendent to attend. Again, 4 I thought was feasible based on participation with the survey. We had 3 who had already indicated that they wanted to participate, but that didn't include Ms. Colvin having an opportunity to reflect upon whether or not she wanted to attend. So that reduction is being seen there. We did reduce the consultation fees for the board self-evaluation. So instead of it saying self-evaluation, for example, when the board wants to bring in MSBA or any other consultant, there are funds there for that to occur. The retreat was reduced to $325, and then I did leave funds in the meetings with superintendents from $2,300 to $300 across the year, and actually looked at previous year's expenditures for that, and that would cover the cost for that, and then the elimination of the board spirit wear. For the superintendent's annual celebration, again, I think culture is critical. That's a goal and an area where we continue to focus. So I didn't eliminate that as the request or ask was made. I did reduce it in half to ensure that there are opportunities for celebration for the central office team as well. Couple other items. I did follow up with Ms. Stansel to further understand the gifted services competition. That's a competition that our gifted students participate in. Typically we have 3 to 4 teams that participate in $500, and they actually compete against other surrounding districts. As that is an opportunity for the students to engage, I did continue to keep that in because from an equity standpoint, there are 2 sides of the spectrum. One is for those students who need support and also for those students who need enrichment. One of the items which is included here was a reduction applied to foundations. While that was actually included as a result of the approval of the reading resource, we have found that from the research, a lot of the districts are continuing to supplement with foundations, but as a request to reduce some of the cost from purchase services that was reduced. I will say, when thinking about how foundation supports our L students and underperforming students, as we think about the board directive, I do think that that is a gap in some of the work that we've done. As we prepare for the next fiscal year, Chris Hoser and I will continue to look at the budget and continue to plan use the processes that we use this year, monitoring monthly expenditures, and then also pulling back money in December when those expenditures aren't being utilized as outlined in their plans, and then also continuing to provide updates to the board throughout the year around expenditures, revenues, and things of that nature as it regard to the board directive. I did want to cite a few notes for opening day, which was an item that was asked to be reviewed. I don't think it's prudent to remove that funding for that because that's a part of MRH tradition. And if we're trying to continue to build culture, I think it's prudent for us to continue to offer that opportunity for staff. But we did review to ensure that includes all of the costs and the breakfast that's provided to staff. And I did not remove the ad hoc principal PD for their staff because I do think it's important for them to have an opportunity to provide those opportunities to their teachers. As it relates to the items that were suggested by Trent, I did look at some of those items which didn't necessarily require a change to the budget. They were more of operational items, at least one of them, around reducing the heating and cooling for expenditures. So that's something that Dr. Dietrich and I will actually talk about. I believe he's already engaging in that currently, because when you come in the morning, it's pretty muggy. But the other item that we will discuss, I don't necessarily think we need a budget consultant for benefits. We do have access to free resources, and I would like to use the trust as well as the support from some of our other providers like American Fidelity to be able to support us in those efforts. That is my overview based on the feedback from the last board meeting. I am going to pass it over to Chris so that he can go through the difference between the last budget meeting and then highlight some of the reductions that we've made from the last time we met. Chris, let me quit sharing.
Dr. Jameson, if you wouldn't mind bringing up page 37 of the budget book.
All right.
We'll start there. Okay, so not a whole lot has changed since the last time, but a number of things have, and we'll hit those in just a minute. So the final budget we are presenting to you this evening results in a total revenue across all sources of $34,009,229, with total expenses being $30,590,428,000, which will net a surplus of $3,418,801, as Dr. Jameson noted previously. And that will end in a resulting fund balance of 43.7%. As we make changes to the 25 budget as we come to the end, of course, that number will move. But for the purposes of this budget, that number will hold. As we go into salaries and benefits, salaries have increased $1.1 million over the prior year, which was anticipated given the 8% increase to salaries for teachers, 3.75% increase to administrator salaries, 3.75% plus the step increase for support staff. And benefits, we're calculating an 18.8% increase in medical benefits overall. And of course, retirement being a benefit scales to the sum of the salary and the medical benefits provided by the district. So the increases we see here were anticipated given the factors previously mentioned. Capital outlay is one that we've also spoken about previously. We're at $92,720, and that is a result of offloading the majority of capital projects into the bond funds, or the bond proceeds that we will receive on Thursday of this week. So what has changed between now, today, and the prior meeting? So we have made some changes to salaries, and that is a result of positions being either, as we learn of folks going out and coming in, so adjustments here related to that, in addition to some minor changes to extra duty salaries. Benefits, I had mentioned to you at the last meeting that I felt like there was an overcalculation, so a $401,000 decrease as we trued up those numbers. So I do believe that that number is in a good place now. We also reduced purchase services, another $49,485 as a result of changes requested by the board, and also adjusting a few other of our professional development items. As we further reviewed supplies, Dr. Jameson mentioned that foundations was removed. I don't remember the exact dollars amount for those, but they were pretty significant for both the ECC and the elementary, so that did net quite a big difference. If we want to look at the differences between the prior year, $1.1 million on the salary side, $336,000 or so on the benefit side. There is an increase to purchase services. Remembering, of course, that we have over $200,000 in grant funds that we're still expending that were received at the end of last fiscal year and the beginning of this fiscal year. And let's see, $203,000 increase to supplies. That also holds a portion of the that CDE grant revenue. We have heard that, speaking of revenue, we have heard there's been some minor decreases in both Title I funding and Title II funding. Those changes have already been captured in the revenue budgets, I believe. If not, they are not necessarily material to the overall impact. The impact is not material to the overall budget, I should say. So, returning back to the page 37, which is the operating fund summary. The operating budget at this point is, again, $34,009,229 on the revenue side, $30,590,428 on the expense side, with an ending fund balance of 43.7% at this time.
Welcome any questions the board may have at this time.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for this like big picture view for someone who's new. It was very helpful. So thank you.
Even for someone who's not new, it was also very helpful. I appreciate all the hard work that went in the last several months to try to incorporate some of the requests and just to try to find cost savings where you could. So thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions or comments or thoughts? No? Okay.
Would it be possible to include the document that
Yes.
you
Yes.
shared in
Yes,
the
here,
record?
I was gonna. I think that's helpful for community too. Yeah, to see that. No, he's not. All right, so moving on to action items. First, we have the warrant list. May I get a motion to approve the warrant list?
Motion to approve the warrant list as presented.
Second.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about the warrant list? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, may I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 26 budget as presented?
Motion to approve the budget as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, and then we have the LDR contract, which was added. May I get a motion to approve the LDR contract?
Motion to approve the LDR contract.
Second.
Okay, any questions about this discussion? I actually have a question, sorry. So it looks like based on the, what we got, the old one, that the terms included, like, we just use it as needed. We're not
Yes.
required to use any certain amount, we don't, okay.
And I did meet, as well as Chris met with the consultant we'll be working with and identified the amount of time based on what the needs are. So I'm really trying to limit and see which of those items I can actually take on while we continue to our search for the finance position.
So is this an existing as-needed position that's been around and we're approving an extension of it?
So we've worked, and Chris probably has more insight, but we've worked with LDR since I've been here. And so we've used them for the accountant vacancy, and I believe we used Randy Charles as a part of the last bond project. And Chris, if you want to speak to other partnerships with LDR.
Our relationship with LDR goes back to 2016. We began with CFO, consultant for CFO. We've used them along with another consultant firm for that position, and then we've used it for the accounting position twice. We've used it for what was then the Buildings and Grounds Department Director prior to and into COVID, and then I took over with those responsibilities at that point. But we've been using them for some time with great success. Dr. Labore is a legend in education around the state and does a fine job of matching consultants with the needs of the districts.
So this is a consulting group that matches
Yes.
different people. Okay.
And I did vet the consultant that is being assigned as well.
Any other questions?
And it's also worth noting that he and I are going to meet for the majority of tomorrow afternoon to go through and other things and to make sure that as the handoff occurs that they're in place.
All
I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 1, 3, 9, 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on June 24th, 2025 for the following specific reasons: legal matters and personnel matters.
Second.
Mr. Roll call. Mr. Colbert?
Aye.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt? Yes. Ms. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Colvin?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.